Imagine being born into a life of extreme wealth and privilege. You have access to the best schools, the most lavish parties, and the ear of influential people. Yet beneath that glamorous surface, you feel restless, lost, and alone. That was Edwina Ashley's life from the moment she was born. Her story weaves together scandal, bravery, heartbreak, and a craving for more than luxury could ever provide. Edwina Ashley was born on November 28, 1901. Her father, Wilfred Ashley, was a Conservative Member of Parliament. Her mother, Maud Cassell, was the daughter of Sir Ernest Cassell, then one of Britain's wealthiest men. By all accounts, Edwina's early life was set on a course of luxury that most people could only dream about. But wealth doesn't guarantee happiness. Her parents were busy with their social lives, so Edwina and her younger sister Mary received minimal attention at home. The family name carried influence, but it also came with cold formality. Edwina would later describe her childhood as lonely and distant. She had little warmth from her parents, who seemed more interested in parties and politics than raising their children. When Edwina was 11, her mother died of tuberculosis. This loss shattered what little sense of family closeness she had. Her father remarried soon after, choosing a woman named Molly, 20 years his junior, and just a few years older than Edwina herself. Molly had little patience for Edwina, seeing her as an inconvenience, and the new stepmother quickly packed Edwina off to a boarding school. At school, Edwina had trouble fitting in. She was teased for being different and wealthy and hated the rigid daily routine. Desperate to escape, she wrote to her grandfather, pleading, "Please take me away, dear grandpa, if you love me at all." Sir Ernest Cassell, her maternal grandfather, heard her plea and intervened. He brought Edwina to Brook House in Mayfair, one of London's most impressive private residences. His household was enormous, with staff for every imaginable task. There was even someone hired solely to take care of the flower arrangements. Sir Ernest had German Jewish roots, but worked his way into British high society, becoming a financial advisor to the Prince of Wales, the future Edward VII. Under his guidance, Edwina flourished. She was no longer just a lonely child in a boarding school. Here, she played hostess to grand gatherings, rubbing shoulders with aristocrats, industrial magnates, and visiting dignitaries. Within this elite environment, Edwina formed friendships that would shape her future. One of her closest friends was Gloria Vanderbilt, whose family was known for immense wealth. Edwina stepped further into the glamorous world of country estates, glittering balls, and sophisticated city events through Gloria. But it was at one of these gatherings, hosted by the Vanderbilts, that she met the man who would change her life, Lord Louis Mountbatten. Dickie was a naval officer and a great-grandson of Queen Victoria. He was also related to nearly every other ruling family in Europe. His family ties were so extensive that he often joked he couldn't attend a gathering without bumping into a cousin from some European court. Despite his aristocratic background, Dickie was approachable and full of energy. He had a quick wit, and he and Edwina clicked almost instantly. Their shared circle of friends included European royals, wealthy American families, and British high society. It was a match that seemed both socially and financially perfect, a union of old royalty with new money. Their courtship, however, began in sadness. Dickie's father died on September 11, 1921, and just 10 days later, Edwina's beloved grandfather, Sir Ernest Cassell, also passed away. Edwina inherited an enormous fortune, making her at the time one of the richest young women in the world. Edwina Ashley and Lord Louis Mountbatten married on July 18, 1922, at St Margaret's Church in Westminster. The day was a spectacle. 8,000 spectators gathered in the surrounding area, hoping to glimpse the couple. Members of the royal family were involved. The Prince of Wales served as best man, and King George V was present to give his blessing. Their 6-month honeymoon was a journey across the globe. They visited Spain as King Alfonso and Queen Ina's guests, hopped over to Manhattan to stay with friends like the Vanderbilts, and then even mingled with Charlie Chaplin and other Hollywood icons in Los Angeles. By the time they returned to London, they were at their absolute pinnacle of Britain's social ladder. Their home in London became a magnet for the elite. You could find Winston Churchill enjoying political conversation, Noel Coward performing a quick song at the piano, and American movie stars like Douglas Fairbanks Jr. dropping by. The couple seemed perfect, stunning, affluent, connected to royalty, and full of life. Beneath this dazzling exterior, their relationship was more complicated. Dickie was deeply devoted to his naval career and had a fascination with life at sea. At home, he preferred everything to look and feel like a ship's cabin. Edwina, meanwhile, had grown up with servants fulfilling every whim and was bored by everyday aristocratic routines. Early in their marriage, they shared a genuine physical attraction and delight in each other's company. However, as time passed, they discovered they had few authentic interests in common. After having two daughters, Patricia and Pamela, Dickie threw himself back into naval duties. At the same time, Edwina sought thrills in jet-set travels, gambling at private clubs, and dancing at stylish night spots until dawn. Edwina was known to have a string of lovers. The inner circle called them Edwina's Ginks. Some were famous men, actors, musicians, and other high society figures. The rumours weren't purely one-sided. Dickie also had his affairs, and according to some sources, was attracted to both men and women. Though they tried to keep up appearances, their secret love lives were well known among their friends. One telling incident was when Edwina arrived home from a shopping trip to find 5 lovers waiting in different rooms, each hoping for a moment with her. A frustrated maid scolded Edwina for not instructing them on where to put these gentlemen. For the 2 Mountbatten children, this was a confusing environment. Their parents cared for them but rarely stayed in one place. Sometimes Edwina would embark on a long trip, leaving the girls in a foreign hotel under the supervision of a governess. Weeks or months could pass before she remembered to collect them. Meanwhile, Dickie was often away at sea, visiting naval bases or attending royal obligations. Despite this emotional distance, Patricia and Pamela had extraordinary childhood experiences. They played with lavish toys and even lived with exotic pets, a lion cub, a mongoose, and a pair of wallabies that munched on orchids. Yet material luxury couldn't replace daily parental affection. Eventually, Edwina and Dickie came to an understanding. They would maintain the appearance of a solid marriage, joining each other at official events, but they granted each other the freedom to pursue relationships outside their union. This open arrangement was an open secret among their peers. When World War II broke out, Edwina's initial reaction was dismissive. She once joked that she might sacrifice 2 of my maids or give up chocolate, showing how out of touch she seemed with the seriousness of war. But as events escalated, her perspective changed dramatically. Volunteering with the St. John Ambulance Brigade gave her a new sense of purpose. She organised nursing services, visited bomb shelters, and gathered medical supplies for military hospitals. Her transformation from a frivolous socialite to a dedicated worker earned her respect. People who had once gossiped about her affairs now saw her selfless side. Her commitment earned her the title of Dame Grand Cross of the Order of St. John of Jerusalem. Throughout the war, Edwina worked closely with medical and rescue teams, travelling to areas damaged by air raids. She also arranged fundraising efforts using her social connections to gather donations for supplies. Meanwhile, Dickie rose through naval ranks, eventually becoming Supreme Allied Commander in Southeast Asia. Though still living largely separate personal lives, Edwina and Dickie cooperated during the war to do their part. Her interest in humanitarian work expanded her worldview, making her more compassionate and curious about places far beyond Britain's shores. In 1947, everything changed again. Prime Minister Clement Attlee appointed Lord Mountbatten as the last Viceroy of India, giving him the enormous task of overseeing India's transition from British rule to independence. Edwina, now the Viceroy, moved to Delhi to stand beside her husband. At this point, India was on the brink of being split into two nations, India and the newly formed Pakistan. Tensions ran high. Large groups of people, Hindus, Muslims and Sikhs, were at odds. Partition violence seemed inevitable. Edwina surprised many observers by adapting quickly and using her charm to build rapport with Indian leaders and ordinary citizens. She hosted elaborate receptions at the Viceroy's house, inviting local dignitaries, Indian princes and political figures, but beyond the parties she visited hospitals, orphanages and refugee camps. She helped transport supplies to areas hit by communal violence, sometimes risking her safety to tend to the wounded. Among those she met was Jawaharlal Nehru, a central figure in the independence movement and soon to be India's first Prime Minister. Nehru was a widower known for his intense dedication to Indian independence, and he and Edwina had formed a deep emotional bond that quickly became the subject of speculation. Mountbatten himself was often present when they spent time together, making sure there was no public scandal, but many say the two shared genuine love. Lord Mountbatten had intended for partition to unfold over several years. Instead, the lines dividing India and Pakistan were announced abruptly. The British effectively washed their hands of the region's governance once independence was declared. This caused chaos on an unimaginable scale. Entire communities had to uproot themselves almost overnight, travelling across newly formed borders under hostile conditions. On the night the partition lines were confirmed, the British and Indian elite held a large celebration in the Mughal gardens of Delhi. Thousands of lanterns illuminated the event. It was an odd moment inside the enclosed gardens as guests sipped champagne, congratulating each other on a supposedly peaceful power transfer. Beyond those walls, violence erupted. Over the following months, nearly 1 million people would die in riots, massacres, and forced migrations. Unlike many officials who stayed within guarded compounds, Edwina ventured out. She visited areas caught in the crossfire, helping treat the injured. One story mentions her arriving in a war-torn zone with bullets still flying, determined to rescue survivors. She organised medical clinics and supported relief efforts, doing what she could to lessen the suffering. Her bravery didn't erase the tragedy of partition, but it earned her respect from Indians and Britons alike. Winston Churchill, who loathed Gandhi and had opposed Indian independence, was enraged by what he saw as Edwina's overly sympathetic stance. When he saw a photo of her kneeling in grief at Mahatma Gandhi's cremation, he felt she had betrayed Britain's position. Churchill demanded Mountbatten's immediate return to England, effectively cutting their time in India short. Still, Edwina and Nehru remained in touch even after her departure. Each year he visited Britain and she visited India. They exchanged letters in which they spoke of longing and mutual admiration. Nehru sent her gifts from around the world, including a book of erotic photography, an intensely personal token in that era. After leaving India, Edwina continued her humanitarian efforts, although she felt adrift with the meaningful role she had played in Delhi. She engaged in philanthropic missions, travelling to remote areas to inspect hospitals and clinics. Her health, however, began to decline, and in February 1960, while on a St. John ambulance tour in Borneo, she complained of weakness. The next morning, her staff found her dead in bed, surrounded by letters from Nehru. She was just 58 years old. The Royal Navy granted her a burial at sea in the English Channel. Nehru sent an Indian naval vessel bearing marigolds placed on the water, while Mountbatten cast his wreath. It was a solemn, poignant end for a woman who had once dazzled the world at grand balls and overshadowed it with bold acts in war and peace. Dickie Mountbatten lived on, continuing his naval and public service, but in 1979, nearly 2 decades after Edwina's death, he was assassinated by the IRA, the Irish Republican Army, while on a fishing trip. Their daughters Patricia and Pamela carried on the Mountbatten name, each facing the complicated legacy of their parents' famously open marriage and countless social connections. Edwina's life spanned 2 world wars, the height of the British Empire and its eventual crumbling through decolonisation. She was born into a bubble of privilege, but evolved into someone who found purpose in crisis. She championed nursing brigades, visited wounded soldiers, and rushed into dangerous areas during India's partition. At the same time, her personal life was filled with scandals and heartbreak. She tested social conventions that seemed unbreakable in the early 20th century Britain. Many who knew her described her as intelligent, restless, and compassionate. She never quite fitted into the role society carved out for an aristocratic woman, whether she was dancing until dawn on the French Riviera, volunteering in bomb shelters, or sneaking away for secret meetings with Nehru. She pushed at the edges of what was acceptable for a position. Her final moment, dying far from home with love letters scattered around her, captures a sense of longing that underpinned her life. Perhaps she was always searching for a deeper emotional connection that remained out of reach. Edwina Mountbatten's story reminds us that immense wealth and status don't bring automatic happiness. She had everything money could buy, yet her diaries reveal a need for genuine love and purpose. The same woman who judged multiple lovers also raced into violent areas to save lives. In each chapter of her existence, she seemed to be chasing a new thrill, a new cause, or a new love to fill the emptiness inside. Yet her legacy endures in history books and the memories of those who benefited from her war and partition relief efforts. She played a unique part in the twilight years of the British Empire, standing at the side of its final Viceroy and forging a link to India's first Prime Minister. So was she a scandalous socialite or a humanitarian hero? The truth is, she was both. That complicated blend of self-indulgence and selflessness makes Edwina Mountbatten's life a fascinating story that refuses to be neatly categorised.